Hello, my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel. Today's video is comprised of 3 different lists. So the first top 10 list is my favorite books, and then the second one is my favorite universes or series. And with that, let's get started. These are my top 10 favorite books, and these can include anything from random books in a series to standalones. And before we get to number 10, here are some quick honorable mentions. Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Girls with Sharp Sticks by Suzanne Young. Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Vicious by V.E. Schwab. There Will Come a Darkness by Katy Rosepool. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzi Lee. The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And Chameleon Aura by Billy Chapata. And with that, let's get into the list. And number 10 is If I Stay by Gale Foreman. So this is a book about a girl named Mia. Her and her family are in a car accident and she has to decide whether or not she wants to live. I read this book a really long time ago, which is why it's so far down on the list. I just really love this concept of the story. I think it was very well executed. I love the romance. Overall, I just think it's such a beautiful story, and I also really enjoy the movie adaptation of this as well. I definitely want to give this a reread someday to see if it still holds up, but for now it's at number 10. Number 9 is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. So this book is about a girl named Frances who spends her time making fan art for a podcast called Universe City. And one day she gets a message from the creator of Universe City, and this book explores their relationship together as well as their relationship with themselves. So this book pretty much just hit me right in the feels. It's a very hard-hitting story, it's a very important story, and I loved it. The next book is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. And this is the first of many of Marissa Meyer's books that will be on this list today. And this is basically her retelling of how the Queen of Hearts became the Queen of Hearts. I love villain stories. This book just basically gave me everything I wanted from it. And there's nothing really in here that didn't go the way I expected it to, but the way I expected it to was just everything I could have ever wanted. I loved the romance, I loved the characters, I loved the writing, I loved the pacing of this book. Honestly, I couldn't imagine this story going any other way. And if it did, I would probably be pretty disappointed, but it didn't, so it's here. Number 7 is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And this book is about a magical circus that only arrives randomly at night. This book is very well loved, and I am absolutely no exception to that. Everything about it, from the romance to the writing to the atmosphere, is absolutely beautiful. I adore this book. Number 6 is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. So this is a book about Asa and her best friend Daisy, who are investigating a mystery of a billionaire. And along the way, Asa is also dealing with her own thoughts and her own problems. This is by far my favorite John Green book that I've ever read. It is very well executed. The overall message is amazing. The characters are great, and I enjoyed every second of reading this. Number 5 is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. And this book is about a man who lives in a tower. He's called the Dragon, and every 10 years he comes down to the valley to choose one woman to come with him back to his tower. 1 year that is our main girl Agnieszka, which I probably pronounced that wrong. But this book has absolutely no right to be as high up on this list as it is. That romance, man, it really hit me hard. It's barely in this book. Like, this isn't a romance book at all. It's not the main focus, and yet its entire being just made this book so worth it for me. Number 4 is A Dark Between the Stars by Atticus. And this is his second poetry collection, and it explores the highs and lows of relationships. This is the book that basically got me into poetry. It has a very special place in my heart. I think everything about this is just unbelievably beautiful. It's just a very breathtaking experience, and books never, ever, ever make me cry. This one made me cry. And number 3 is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is a Chosen One story about Simon Snow. It's a spin-off of Fangirl. In fact, this is the only book to this day that I have ever reread. And that was when Wayward Son was coming out, and it had been so long since I read this before, because I read this when it first came out. So I gave it a reread, and I still love it. It's adorable, it's funny, it's sweet. Overall, it's just amazing, and I do plan to reread it again before the 3rd book comes out. I don't know if I'll reread Wayward Son, but I will definitely be rereading this. And number 2, and that is The Wicked King by Holly Black. This is book 2 of the Folk of the Air series, and I won't give you the plot for this one, but the plot for the first one is our main character Jude was 7 when her parents were murdered, and her sisters are taken to the court of fairy, and Jude just wants to belong there and win a place at the court, but the Prince Cardin is standing in her way. Okay, so this book. I've never been as tricked, as angry at anything as I was at the end of this book with that plot twist. On one hand, I was mad at it. On the other hand, I was laughing and just having a great time because the road to that twist was just so much fun. I love Jude. She's one of my favorite characters I've ever read from. And I love Cardin as well. I think they're both just very smart individuals. I greatly enjoy their chemistry together. Yeah, this is a great book. It's a great series. I just have a lot of fond memories and feelings associated with it. And number 1, my favorite book of all time is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. And this is about a city where the renegades are like these superhero figures, and they are very beloved to everyone in the city except for the villains that they overthrew. We follow our main character Nova, who is part of that villain troupe. She goes on a mission to get vengeance against the renegades. She meets Adrian, who is a member of the Renegades, and things get more complicated as the story goes on. So I mentioned before that I love villain stories, and this book gave me everything that I didn't know I needed until I read it. Nova is absolutely one of my favorite characters ever, and this was my first Marissa Meyer book, and without this I wouldn't have went and read her other stuff probably, and she's my favorite author. So without this, I wouldn't have that. And I can't say enough good things about it, although I'm gonna stop now because we got a lot of other things to get through in this video. So now that that list is done, let's jump right into the next one, and that is my top 10 favorite series / universes. And like before, we're gonna start with some quick honorable mentions. The A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. The And I Darken trilogy by Kirsten White. And the last honorable mention is The Girl from the Other Side manga by Nagabe. Okay, and with that, let's jump right into the list, and number 10, and that is The Ancient Magus Bride by Kori Yamazaki. Okay, and this story follows Chise, who is an orphan who is sold to a inhuman mage. There she begins her new life that is filled with magic and fairies and other creatures. So this is a book that basically got me into reading manga. I think this story is so beautiful. I think the world is beautiful. The only reason it's so far down on this list is because I haven't completed it yet. I actually do want to do a reread of this series. I think I'm like 1 or 2 volumes behind right now. So before I read those, I definitely want to give the first few a reread. Number 9 is the Scythe trilogy by Neil Shusterman. And this is a book about a world where there is no hunger, no disease, no war, and the Scythes are the only ones who can take lives. This series never ceases to impress me. I think it's such a well thought out and well done world. I think what Neil Shusterman has crafted here is just unbelievably interesting. And this book is so far down on this list because I think this romance in here is completely unnecessary. But otherwise, other than that, everything else is really great. And number 8 are the Nevernight Chronicles by J. Kristoff. It's about a girl named Mia who wants to get revenge for her family, so she goes to this assassin school. This is a story that is dark, gritty, graphic, violent, all of the above. It is absolutely the assassin story of my dreams. Like, this is what I wanted Throne of Glass to be back when I read Throne of Glass. I've mentioned before that the first 100 pages of this book were very tough for me, and they were. I stand by that. I did not enjoy it. But as soon as they reached the assassin school, things got so much more fun. I credit it to Ashlyn. But yeah, it's just a really fun series all around. And number 7 is the Shadowhunters universe that Cassandra Clare has created. So I was very skeptical and a little hesitant to get into this whole thing that she's got going on. Because I had heard a lot of bad things, but I also heard a lot of good things, and I thought maybe I was just past the point where I would have liked this series. I definitely did my research on it before I read it, and I knew what I was getting into. I was prepared for everything, and I think that really helped me out a lot because I love this series. It's such an easy world to fall into with characters that are so lovable. And yes, they can be over dramatic and annoying, but honestly, it just kind of made it more fun for me just to like laugh at all of their antics. and I hope to get caught up very soon, although probably not. Number 6 is the Lunar Chronicles series by Marissa Meyer. And these are fairy tale retellings. Cinder specifically is the first book, and it is a android retelling of Cinderella. And the land that they live on is being coveted by a space witch, and in order for that to not happen, it all hangs on to Cinder, who is a mechanic and a cyborg. So the series basically goes from there, and more characters join in, and they create this really fun found family together. It's just such a likable group of characters. I would definitely say that the overall plot is interesting as well, but the characters are really what I feel makes this series really shine. And number 5 is the Grishaverse by Leigh Bardugo. The series starts with the original Shadow and Bone trilogy. I did not love the original Shadow and Bone trilogy at all. But what that trilogy really does is it sets the stage for Six of Crows later on. And I just really love this world, and I love the characters from everybody in Six of Crows to Nikolai and Zoya in this one. And also the Netflix adaptation's coming out soon, which is really exciting. Even though I'm kind of upset that Sweet and Wholesome Wyland's not going to be in it, or at least it looks like he's not going to be in the first season. So I'm a little bitter about that, but I'll get over it. Maybe. Number 4 is the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy by Jenny Han. So I'm not a big contemporary reader. I'm not a big romance reader. But these were just so cute. If you don't know, this series follows our main character, Laura Jean, and she keeps all of her love letters in a box, and one day they get shipped out to all the guys she wrote them to. I actually don't like the second book in this series, but the first and the third one really carry it for me. Like, they're just so sweet and adorable, and I flew through all of this. I wasn't expecting to love this series as much as I did, but I'm certainly glad I gave it a try, even if it's not the type of thing I would normally read. And it's actually given me the courage to venture out more into stuff more like it, which I'm very nervous about. But we'll see. Number 3 is all 3 of Atticus's poetry collections. And that includes Love Her Wild, Dark Between Stars, and The Truth About Magic. I mentioned before in this video how this got me into poetry. Every one of these books I find to be so immensely beautiful. I think all 3 of them actually made me cry. He is definitely my favorite poet ever, and this just has such a very special place in my heart. And number 2 on my list is the Renegades trilogy by Marissa Meyer. So I've already talked about Renegades, so I won't do the plot again, and you already know I love that book. And for the rest of the series, I think Arch Enemies is a great second book, and I do think Supernova is a great finale. I wanted things to end a little differently than they did. And if it had ended that way, and don't get me wrong, I like the way it ended. I love this series. I will always love this series no matter what it does. I think I'm going to love everything Marissa Meyer ever writes no matter what it is. But because of that, it's number 2. And number 1 is the Folk of the Year series by Holly Black. Again, I've already talked about this, so I'm going to attempt to keep it brief. I love everything about this series. I love Jude. I've never gelled with a character like I've gelled with her ever. I love Cardin. I think he's super fun and smart and clever. I think that about Jude as well. I love them together. I love the politics of this world. I find that very interesting. And I know that this book I'm holding up right now is kind of controversial with how it ended. Is it what I was expecting? Absolutely not. Did I want better? Not necessarily. I like what happened here. So that is the end of that list, and that is also the end of this video. So thank you so much for watching. If you want, let me know down below what your favorite book of all time is. I do hope to do more of these types of videos in the future. They were a lot of fun to make. And I hope to see you here next time. Bye.